Hi everyone, and welcome to this video where we look at one of the models in my classic computer collection. And today we're going to have a look at this one, the Epson HX-20. Now this little innovative computer was announced in 1981, and it's widely regarded as being the first notebook computer. Now let me just give you some historical context. There were portable computers around in 1981. There were ones like this, the Osborne one, which was not so much a portable computer, but more of a transportable computer. And when you got to where you were going, you had to find a power source to plug it in. You did have things like the TRS-80 pocket computer, which essentially was a calculator type device with calculator keys. It had BASIC, but only a one-line LCD screen, so quite a small device. At the other end of the spectrum to the Osborne. The HX-20, on the other hand, had a full-stroke keyboard. It ran on batteries. It weighed just a little over 1 kilogram, or 3 pounds for those of you that use imperial units. Size of an A4 page, and fitted nicely on your lap. So it was a very exciting machine. So let's have a look at it. Portability was a big selling point with the HX-20, and it's illustrated in this ad here. Here we see a couple of guys, they're probably students, and the one on the left there, this is the cool one, has the HX-20 comfortably supported essentially just by one hand. He's looking comfortable, while his friend next to him has an Apple II, and he's struggling. He's awkwardly carrying the Apple II computer itself under one arm, and he's got the monitor under the other arm. He doesn't even have the disk drives, but he's already finding it quite difficult just to hold everything he's got. So the message was, if you want something portable and cool, the HX-20 was the one to go with. Not only that, it could also be sexy, as seen in this advertisement from Germany. So the translation says, Epson HX-20 handheld computer, the computer that goes along for the ride. Note the grey case there. These weren't common, and apparently, according to some sources on the web anyway, these were just prototypes. A cream or silver livery was the standard colour. I'm not sure when the sales of the HX-20 started in New Zealand, but here's an advertisement from our New Zealand Bits and Bytes magazine in November 1982. You'll notice it lists 6 advantages there, and of course these are advantages over computers in the day. So it notes small size, the built-in power source that could run on batteries, automatic function keys, an interface for peripherals, a memory saver, and costs less. Now of these points, a couple of them deserve further elaboration. And I'll talk first about the interface for peripherals point. The computer was built with interfacing in mind. So you could hook up the unit to an external monitor, to disk drives, to modems, printers, and other devices that Epson were selling for it. Hence you could have all these things sitting on your desk, but then unplug the basic unit when you wanted it to be portable. So it was a kind of docking station concept before that concept was even thought about. As to the reference to memory saver, I think this refers to the fact that you could switch the computer off, yet the contents of memory are retained, being refreshed by the internal batteries. And this was quite a novel concept at the time, and of course highly useful. So I think that's what that particular point was referring to. The basic unit came with 16K of RAM, which was quite a respectable amount in 1981. You'd also buy an expansion unit which boosted this up to 32K. So here's my HX-20. It's a stylish and well laid out design, and it's typical of Epson, who had first made their name in microcomputing with a classic dot matrix printer, the MX-80, introduced in 1979. One of the nice features of this computer is the keyboard. Keys are spacious, they're well laid out, they're easy to type on. They've got a really good feel, and they're attractive to look at as well with their grey and black and red colours. My unit has a built-in cassette recorder. This was an optional extra on the HX-20 and it used small dictation-type cassettes. It's reliable and it works well. You'll see this little unit in action later on in this video. Now we come to the screen. Now, allowing just 4 lines of 20 characters, there wasn't a lot of real estate here, although it was a large LCD for the time. If you wanted it to be, it could be a larger virtual screen. This was achieved by with command in BASIC. But you'd have to use horizontal scrolling, of course, to see this parts of the screen, which wasn't very convenient. Screen itself was driven by separate 120 x 32 addressable pixels, so it could display graphics, as you'll see later. It wasn't backlit though, which meant you did need reasonable light to see it. Now, this tiny screen limited the HX-20's use for one of the most common serious microcomputer tasks at the time, and that was word processing, although word processors were available for this machine. However, it was certainly feasible as a note taker, where you can type in text and upload it to a larger machine for further processing. Fitted as standard was a fairly cute little dot matrix printer, similar to ones found in cash registers of the day. It wouldn't give you the high quality reports to show the boss, but it was fine for outputting data or program listings, and you'll see this in action later in the video also. Note also those function keys. Those ones on the right, there are actually 5 of them, you can only see 2.5 there, could be used as programmable function keys, but also to drive the cassette recorder as well. Coming around the side, going from left to right, we can see the on-off switch, a variable control knob which changes the contrast of the LCD related to viewing angle, and sockets for an external cassette player, 3 of them, and then the one at the right there is for a barcode reader. Small button to the right, and at the bottom is a reset switch, and the small latch above those sockets and that reset button opened up the cassette unit to insert and retrieve the cassette. Around the back we have a lever for popping out the whole cassette recorder itself. We have the power socket, and next an RS-232 for a printer or modem, and finally a serial socket for an external floppy drive or video display. Now, the unit also came with a very handy, and might I say a very hardy, plastic carry case. Now, this was rugged. A user could be mistaken for arriving at his task with a screwdriver set rather than a computer. Here's a shot of the battery charging unit. Now, note that I said battery charging unit rather than PSU. The HX-20 was designed first and foremost to run off batteries. In fact, it won't work if the batteries aren't present, even if this charger is plugged in. You can use the machine while the batteries are charging, but it wasn't considered a good idea to keep it plugged in all the time. My unit didn't come with batteries, so I had to make up my own battery pack by strapping 4 NiCads together. This works fine, although it's a bit of a squeeze getting it into the small battery bay. Charging takes about 8 hours. Now, it's said that you could get 50 hours out of NiCad batteries in an HX-20 before you need to recharge them. I'm not really sure how long these NiCads last, because I've never run the unit long enough for them to run right down. 50 hours seems quite a long time, but that's what some of the literature says on the web. Motherboard's quite easy to get to. You just open up the case like this, although it is face down when you first encounter it. I haven't had to repair the HX-21, so I haven't had to dig the board out yet. I've got no photos, so here's a photo borrowed from a website. The HX-20 uses 2 Hitachi 6301 CPUs running at 614 kHz, which, according to Wikipedia anyway, is essentially an enhanced Motorola 6801 chip. Notice that static RAM is used rather than the more typical dynamic RAM used in the micros of the day. So this is what the user sees when they boot up. We've got a control @ symbol will initialize the machine, essentially give it a cold reboot. And there's a couple of items in the menu there. Number 1 will take us to the monitor, which we'll look at a little later on. And number 2 will take us to Basic. So here we are in Microsoft Basic, ready to go. You'll see there it says 0 bytes. Now that doesn't mean that there's 0 bytes available. It actually means that nothing is occupying the memory at the moment as far as Basic is concerned. So there's nothing in there. The whole memory space is available for our programs. So let's load something in. So what I'll do is to load a very short program off the cassette tape, just so you can see that working. I found this cassette player recorder to be very reliable. Never have any problems saving or loading programs off it. So this is a very short program I typed out of one of the manuals for the HX-20, and I'm just going to show it to you to demonstrate some of the graphics capability. It's a very simple program. All it does is simply draw a line graph, but you can see how the pixels are addressed on the screen. So you can see with a bit of sophisticated programming, you could get images produced there that are useful as far as data interpretation's concerned. If we break the program, I'll just do a listing and you can see some of the basic commands and what the program is made up of. You can see it's quite clear, so providing the angle is correct, it's quite easy to see the letters on the screen. Now I'll show you something else. I'll just keep quiet while this prints out, just so you can savour the full experience. And there you go, a full listing of the program printed from our built-in dot matrix printer. Very useful. Here's another trick. We can also get a full screen dump. And there it is. I'll just advance the printer up a little. And there's a little graph preserved on paper. Now here's a shot of me typing in a program I found in one of the manuals. We're going to run this program as soon as I've finished entering it. You don't have to suffer through the full typing entry, but I just wanted to show you a couple of things. First of all, that virtual screen I was telling you about, so you can see we're moving horizontally there before I push return. So we are looking at a smaller area of a larger virtual screen. And also just the clack of the keyboard. It's a very good keyboard to use, and you could probably hear, it's reliable. It's certainly not soft and mushy. It has a good, hard, distinct feel under your fingers. So we've got our game typed in now, and I'm just rebooting, and you can see I've named it. I've called it Missile, and you can put a few programs in here depending on the memory. You can put programs in separate memory locations, and they will appear on this list if you name them. So it's got that facility too of having more than one program in memory. So here's just a little simple graphics game where the idea is to try and shoot this car with your missile, so it doesn't run over the man. So obviously takes a bit of practice to get right at this. It's got some random commands in there. One of them deals with the speed. This is a bit slower, so I might have a bit more luck this time. And there we go. Hit it. Now, one last thing I want to show you, and that is the machine language monitor. Now, for those of you not familiar with these early 80s computers, a monitor is a program that allows you to look at the registers or alter the memory directly. So there we see some of the registers and what their values are. You can put a number of commands in there and do various things with the memory directly. I've got 3 manuals for the computer. This is the operations manual, and it has all the information you might want for setting up the machine and getting it running. It's not a very big manual, but it is well produced. It's very professional looking. It has a lot of these friendly cartoons, and they're quite typical of manuals of that era. At the time, we're talking about the early 1980s, people still weren't that comfortable with computers, particularly not personal ones that you used yourself. So a lot of the manuals of that era used these plenty of diagrams and pictures and tried to make things quite friendly and illustrate procedures quite well, knowing that these machines were quite new to people. And you can contrast that with today's modern laptops and notebooks, even phones. When you get them, there's usually no manual at all, and everything. It's assumed that you know what the various bits and pieces do, and you know what USB ports are when you see them, that type of thing. But not so in the early days. So the book's broken into various sections. This one that we're on at the moment talks about the screen, and shows you what you like to see in it. It's partly tutorial, but explains what some of the control key sequences do. This is an important chapter, connecting your HX-20 to other devices, and for normal use of the HX-20, now this feature was quite important. It did interface with a lot of other things. Chapter 7, what do you do if you have problems? A bit of a troubleshooting guide there. How to store the HX-20 properly. Finally, some specifications about the machine. At the very back, there's a single page that says help, and essentially what it does is suggest that you ring this technical support number. I wonder what would happen if we rang that number today, whether we'd get any support for our HX-20. Be a fun sort of thing to try, actually. So that's the operations manual. Now this next manual is in 2 parts. So this is volume 1, and this is the basic tutorial and reference manual. It's quite comprehensive, and this first one is a tutorial. So it really it's a very, very good guide to using BASIC. Epson BASIC, of course, the BASIC in the HX-20, but it goes through in detail with plenty of examples. And I imagine if you'd ploughed through it from beginning to end, you'd get very, very good at BASIC. It covers all of those concepts. If we just have a look at the table of contents, for example, I'll just scroll down, we'll have a look what's here. So it talks about, what BASIC is, how you might change or edit a program, goes through concepts like loops, some numeric examples, working with strings, if-then decisions. You notice it's got an else command in there, subroutines, functions that you can use, how to keep several programs in memory, saving programs on cassette. There's keyboard commands and functions, how you control that virtual screen I talked about, the graphics, the string functions, arrays and how to manipulate those, RAM files, how you might use those, and using input-output devices. Again, it's fairly important for a portable of this nature, how it interfaces with other things. So yes, pretty useful book. And then there's the second one. Now this is volume 2, but it's a reference manual. So on one hand, you've got volume 1, which is tutorial, and here's a fairly large, again, it's about the same size, big manual just dealing with reference, so you can look things up. So it's like if you like, an extended appendix So it's really comprehensive. So it's got just about everything you could think of in here that you might want to refer to. Is just an example of one. That's the resume statement. So pretty good set of manuals. There is one other manual that I'm aware of, and that's the user guide. I'm not sure if it came with the set, but I don't have a copy of that, just a PDF copy. So that's the HX-20. Now in the day they would have been used as simple note takers, or its real forte is in being a portable data collection device. So you could take this out with you to collect some data. You might be doing some scientific research, for example, observing something, or you might be stock taking, and you might want to type some data in there. Computer would pre-process it, and then this data you could upload to a larger computer for final processing. Now, the only time I saw one of these back in the day was at the university. It was hooked up to some laboratory equipment, and it was interfaced to it and collecting data from the experiments that were being run. They could then just unplug the computer, take it to a mainframe terminal, and just upload the data into the big iron. Eventually eclipsed by computers like the TRS-80 Model 100, but nevertheless, in its day when it was released, it certainly set a standard and pushed the frontiers of microcomputing forward. Well, I hope you enjoyed that tour of the Epson HX-20, an innovative machine, that provided a lot of firsts, and generally set the many aspects of the design of future notebooks and laptops. So that's it from me this time. So keep well, and we'll see you in the next video.